So one of the things that kept me emotionally stuck in my relationship with my abusive ex was my attachment to his opinion of me and my desire to change it. You know, he was interpreting things in a way, and I felt this immediate emotional reactivity, you know, like, how could you think that? You know, why, where is this coming from? Why didn't you ask me for clarification? That's not true. I'm not like that, you know? I didn't have a real deep understanding at that time that, you know, if someone has a certain opinion of me and it's like a really bad one, but for some reason they still like want to engage with me and interact with me and tell me that they love me, like, it was all very confusing, you know, like, I'm so confused, right? Like, you're telling me you love me, but you think these horrible things, like, you know, it was very different being in a relationship where I wasn't getting the benefit of the doubt, you know, and I was giving him the benefit of the doubt for some straight up nonsense he was doing. And so I was, you know, I just thought, oh, well, if I explain it well enough, he'll understand and he'll change his mind. Instead of recognizing, you know what? He's a grown person. He's his own person. He gets to have an opinion. And it's not my business to change it. That's, even if unintentionally, that's a controlling thing to do. The healthy thing for me to do is to respect that he has that opinion and then make my decisions accordingly. And so what I learned from that relationship was, you know, firstly, do not give unreliable narrators credence and credibility in their opinions about you. Because I've seen a lot of victims of abuse, you know, the abusers are telling them something and they get so wrapped up, and is it true? You know, no, it's not true. Like, I can show them it's not true, you know, and then they'll understand and they'll think differently about me. Instead of recognizing, like, oh, you know, and obviously this is like for extreme circumstances. This isn't this isn't for normal relationship stuff. This is for like not healthy. This is for toxic dynamics. You know you're in a toxic dynamic. Honestly, when being away from them is such a relief. You're like, I love them, but I'm so relieved when they're gone. You know, that's a really good sign that you're in a toxic dynamic. But anyway, one of the really important things to learn that helps us be less defensive, less reactive, less anxious, is to recognize, like, that everyone is entitled to their opinion and that it is not my lane, anyone else's lane, to change someone else's opinion, just as it's not anybody else's lane to change ours. Like, you know, my opinion is not necessarily their business. Their opinion is not necessarily my business. You know, that's why that's why boundaries, such a big thing, so important. When I was younger, I want to say like high school, college, you know, for me it was very binary. Like, either you're my friend and you're ride or die, or we are not friends and we have no interaction and, you know, we're not anything. And what I didn't realize is at that point was that healthy people have gradations of relationships. So they have their inner circle and they have, you know, like, you have your family, your close core people, and then you have like your close friends, and then like maybe your less close friends and your acquaintances and like work people, and, you know, so you start here and you go out in the rings. We do tend to, so generally speaking, you want to give your core people like credence. You know, if they're telling you a thing, But the premise is that they are healthy people, reliable narrators that can tell you a thing. One, that it's accurate, and two, that they can do it in a way that has compassion for you and understanding your perspective and is kind. If they can't do that, they shouldn't be in our core inner circle. You know, if you have somebody that you're like, oh my gosh, but I love them, but they either can't tell you something accurate, or if they are telling you something accurate, they can't do it with compassion and respect for you and perspective take for you, at least understand like where you're coming from, give you the benefit of the doubt, attribute good intentions to you. That's not a person that should be in the core. You know, and it's hard. It's hard when we've maybe made that mistake and we've let someone in, and then things unfold, you know, and then your heart's engaged, and you know, we believe a lie because we're afraid it's true, or we hope it's true, you know. And a lot of the things that abusers might say to us are things that might be true in some ways and might not. You know, they know a lot about us, but you know, it's not safe to listen to them because they're not demonstrating, you know, accuracy. Like, they might be accurate about part of it, but not all of it. It's not a complete perspective. They're not demonstrating compassion. They're not demonstrating perspective taking for you. So they're not having any empathy for you. There was a fourth one. But so in general, when we get to a point and we're dealing with a person, either in our inner circle or not, and their opinion of who we are is, let's say, irretrievable, we need to accept and acknowledge reality. Like, they've developed an opinion, and then that's a signal to us, like, oh, okay, I need to let go, right? Because does it make sense for a person to develop an opinion about you that's like very negative, and they're telling you awful things about yourself, but then they won't let go? They keep trying to engage with you. They might even say, oh, I love you so much, but you're XYZ, all these things, you know, and that works for both sides of the equation, you know. Victims of abuse might say that to an abuser. An abuser might say that to a victim. Yeah, it's really hard because of this holding on, you know. Like, I now think like a very specific thing about you that's not good. It's not positive about who you are and what you're doing to me. And that may or may not be accurate depending on what side of the divide that we're talking about. But instead of letting go, I'm going to try and change your mind instead. You know, I need you to see you're wrong. I need you to see that I'm right. It can be intentional or unintentional, but an attempt to control another person. You know, it's not respecting that they have an opinion. And that opinion might be wrong. And they might not be a healthy person. And they may be abusive. And they be all these bad things. But they, as a human being, get to have an opinion. And they, as a human being, get to have a wrong opinion, you know? And it's not our lane to change it. And it's not their lane to change ours. Once we get to that point, you know, then we get to decide, like, okay, how do I want to handle this? When you move further along in your healing process and you're away from, like, toxic people in your inner circle, people can still get triggered by being worried about how others think about them. You know, especially if you have a background of child abuse, let's say, because a maladaptive coping mechanism is to be hyper-focused on what somebody else thinks about you, and to try and influence them positively if they think negatively. And, you know, sometimes that's where you see like rescuer tendencies. Sometimes that's where you see overgiving, you know, all the ways that child victims of abuse learn to function in order to influence someone's opinion of them. And, you know, we might incorporate that into ourselves and thinking, like, oh, I'm being nice, but underlying that is this fear. Like, if I'm not like this, someone's not gonna like me. And I really need them to, because it doesn't feel safe if another person doesn't like me. It doesn't feel safe if another person doesn't think I'm a good person. There's a lot of reactivity. There's a lot of defensiveness. There's a lot of, showing up at wherever we're invited. So somebody says a thing about us that's probably not true, and going into like fight or flight mode, I got to respond to this, moving along in your healing journey, you get to a point where you go, oh, I don't have to respond to all of these things. I don't have to respond to somebody else's negative opinion of me. Like, that's their business. That's not necessarily my business. Positive or negative. I think that's how some famous people or well-known people kind of slip into a more ego-driven life experience. They start taking people's really positive opinions of them seriously. Like, but it's not, positive or negative. Someone else's opinion, depending on who they are in relation to us, it's not necessarily our business. And it's really freeing to get to that point. It's really freeing to kind of acknowledge, like, oh, I don't need to react. I don't need to be defensive. I'm not being threatened in this moment with harm. I'm okay. I'm safe. Their opinion of me doesn't determine whether or not I get hurt. So it's a really important thing when we give ourselves the gift of having our opinion be the one that matters the most. Am I in integrity with my values? Am I in integrity with my morals? Do I feel comfortable with like the things I'm doing, the decisions I'm making? And one thing I've discovered about having healthy people in my life is that you can mess up. You don't have to be perfect all the time. You can do a thing and they can be like, hey, so I just wanted you to consider you did this thing, maybe you want to do it differently. Just thought I'd put that out there. And then you can think about it and go, oh gosh, oh, they're right. I wish I had done that differently. It's coming from a place of giving you that was the fourth thing I was trying to remember. Giving you the benefit of the doubt, assuming good intent. Because why would they be your friend and in your inner circle or your loved one or whoever if they didn't positively think about you? If they didn't assume the best of you. So this gets tricky for victims of abuse because they'll give this to somebody kind of unearned, but healthy people. If you're dealing with healthy people, it's safe, to give those people the benefit of the doubt, and it's safe for them to give us the benefit of the doubt, kind of like when we're moving in that direction. I had an interaction with a person where I mistakenly thought they had done something they didn't do. That impacted a lot of other people. And, when I said, hey, was this you? Because if it was, like, oh, this was not okay. And he said, no, it wasn't me. Here's some verification if you need it. And also, thanks for clarifying with me. I know you're coming from a good place. Like, I know you have good intentions here. Like, what a different experience. What a different vibe. What a different life to live, where it's safe enough to make a mistake, that someone can let you know that maybe you've done that, and that they still care about you and respect you and love you. And also they don't like automatically now think you're a terrible, horrible person. And so that their opinion of you is safe to consider. Their opinion of you is your business. Doesn't mean you have to like automatically adopt it, but that's an opinion. You've let them into your inner circle. You've had good boundaries. You've exercised discernment. So when they tell you something, when they reflect something back to you, good or bad, you can go, oh, okay, thank you for that information. I'm going to think about that. So when people are, either not let's say, safe or not in your inner circle and they have an opinion about us, it's not our business. Generally speaking. If you're in an office environment and you gotta make sure you don't lose your job or something, like, then you might gotta do some stuff. But in general, someone else's opinion of us, not our business. And it's super freeing. And we don't have to have an opinion about them. We can just go, oh, okay, I'm vibing with that, I'm not vibing with that. I'm feeling this person, I'm not feeling this person. I like a connection here, or I don't want a connection here. And we don't have to come at it from a very binary, like, good person, bad person perspective. We can just say, oh, is this a good fit for me? Yay, nay? Okay. Does this fit in with what I'm trying to accomplish? And it takes so much weight and heaviness and judgment away from things. It also allows us to step away from people a lot sooner if we kind of accept, like, we don't have to determine they're a bad person to say we don't want to be, having a connection with them. Like, we can go, oh, you know what, this just doesn't feel right, or they don't feel safe, or this is not my thing, or whatever it is. We get to make that determination for ourselves. And if another person just takes it negatively, like, that's their prerogative. They're a human being. They get to make decisions and choices, and as long as they're not harming us, coming against our boundaries, they get to have that opinion. Again, it gets tricky with abusers because they have so much access to our lives and can really blow it up. So, gosh, sometimes it's hard making these videos because there are many permutations. But, if you're dealing with somebody where, let's say, they have some element of impact in your life or control over you or harming you, and you got to deal with that. So, like, their opinion of you, like, matters. Okay. What you do is you go, okay, it's this external thing that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with me. So that opinion might be your business, but that doesn't mean that it's true and that you have to take it in. It just means you got to deal with it. I hope this clarifies some things, but the short version is, we don't have to take on everything. And when you're living in a space where you feel safe and you don't feel a need to feel defensive or reactive, it's so amazing. And when you're surrounded by people who are also not defensive and reactive, it's like a whole new world. It's so good. Anyway, I hope that makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.